Hello and welcome to the Christian Study Abroad podcast. My name is Greg Belgum, and I'm serving as your host here on this conversation today with Dr. Rikki Brons. I'm really excited to be talking to Dr. Brons here in this conversation just about Spanish language and Spanish language immersion and how that has such transformative opportunity for college students to understand who they are in light of who God is and God's creation and the wonderful people all around the world and how language is a pathway to do that. So, Dr. Braun, so good to be with you and excited to jump into conversation today.
Hi, happy to be here.
Good. Well, I missed it just a second ago, but I did want to say you serve as professor of Spanish at Dordt University in Iowa. And so in your role, you teach Spanish all levels from 100 up through, advanced
Yep, I'm
Spanish.
I'm it. So for Spanish, if you come to Dordt, I catch you if you haven't fulfilled your language requirement yet, and you see me in class. But also those that are thinking, "Hey, I had some Spanish in high school; it was kind of fun. Want to continue conversational skills?" So we have conversation classes for that. But then, yeah, minors, majors, people that want to learn more things that will serve them well in the professions that they're going into. And I help with study abroad prep in terms of what course sequencing students would be taking when they go abroad, looking at different program options, working with native speaker tutors on campus that help students prepare and become better for those types of experiences.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, the whole gamut there.
Mhm.
Well, I'd love to open our conversation by asking you a question, a little bit about yourself and some of your background. Can you let us know what's the earliest memory you have of travel, and then what is it about that memory that really sticks with you?
That's a really good question. I have to kind of preface that. So I'm German and I teach Spanish at a Dutch college in Iowa, and people are like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Well, I lived in former East Germany. I was 8 when the wall came down. And so travel in itself at that time when my earliest memory is visiting my oldest sister who had immigrated to Norway. She had done an exchange in Paris, was one of the first groups of young people after the wall came down that got to experience this new freedom and this new way of seeing the world and figuring out who people are despite of what ideology had told us under East German regime. And so experiencing that as a 10, 11 year old, taking a van with my parents and my brother heading up to Scandinavia. One, the beauty of the landscape, right? Like you can't argue with that. So that travel, that sticks with me, experiencing the ocean, experiencing those types of things. But really, after family experiences of not having been able to go anywhere, to have this big wide world out there that wasn't as scary as people made it seem, and experiencing that alongside my parents for the first time because they couldn't travel because the wall had been there for so long and put them in a prison. And so those formative pieces of being able to go, of having the freedom to go to discover both the beauty of creation, but even more the people that inhabited those spaces that spoke different languages, and yet in our humanity we're so much the same. And to see that and to experience the difference of what we had been told about the other previously.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, freedom is one of the words that I'm hearing a lot in there. I mean, one, obviously, the lack of freedom. And then, there's both the real freedom of the wall coming down, but then also the experienced freedom of getting to go and travel. And that's probably something that resonates with anyone who's traveled, is this sense of, wow, I'm in a new place and I could go anywhere and do anything. But it sounds like that was extremely potent for you
Uh,
and your family.
yeah, my dad joked later on, sometimes he wishes the wall hadn't come down, not because he didn't believe in the regime change, but two of his four children ended up living in other countries and farther away from them than maybe they would have liked. And so, yeah, this idea of there's other human beings out there that have different ways of doing things, that have different ways of looking at the world, and the curiosity about that. I think that's the thing, that there's always more to learn about who inhabits this world and their image bearers, and they're created. We're the same in many ways and yet so different. And the curiosity about that, that's what stuck.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing that makes me the most hopeful for study abroad and for our world as a whole right now. I think there can be a lot of negative that's put out there, but I think I sit with a lot of hope and optimism because of what you're saying, the shared humanity across everyone. If we're curious enough and have the boldness enough to go and to sit with people who are different and speak with people who are different. I'd love to read a quote that you have from a couple of years ago and get some of your impressions here. You wrote, or you stated in an interview, when you learn a new language, you aren't just learning new words. You're learning someone else's perspective. You're learning about different traditions and cultures. You're getting to know them as an example of their culture and also as a unique person that God created. So, as I share that quote, are there parts of that really resonate with you or even drive some of your philosophy and approach?
Absolutely. I often have students that come in and either they have to take more foreign language as a requirement, or they kind of feel like maybe it's helpful for their future jobs. But often the idea is still, I'm going to learn vocab and grammar and then I can communicate and it'll serve a certain purpose. And my hope is that through the experiences we can expose students to, whether that's in our classrooms with native speaking tutors from a variety of backgrounds, or by being able to send them abroad or requiring them to go abroad, the piece that language is not ever used in a vacuum. It transmits perspectives, it transmits a certain way of looking at the world. It gives us a bigger picture of who God is. If you just read the Bible in one language, you get a certain sense of it and it's interpreted for you through glasses of your culture. And there's so much richness and diversity out there. Not completely reinterpreting the word, obviously, but when there's a nuance in words and when there's a nuance in, well, in our tradition or in our faith tradition, this is how we look at that. There's so much richness and deeper understanding that comes with studying that. So language as a way of really discovering somebody's word. I, as a German, think about the word bread, and bread to me invokes a certain image. It has to have a hard crust, and there's a certain way that you buy it, and the way that it smells, and how important it is in your daily meals. And then you can translate that into bread in English, but in English here in America, it's squishable and it expands by itself, and doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. It's the same word, but it invokes different things. And pan de vida, when I hear that in Spanish, that has such a richer, deeper kind of meaning for me. So that's just as a very silly example of looking at the same thing and yet having other experiences, around that. So my students learn, okay, so one, we can't separate words from meaning and how people look at the world. But even this idea of, I use language to connect with others. We're made for community. We're created to not be on our own and wrestle through life on our own, but we're created to be in community. And language serves as that connector, that bridge between people that may have different perspectives of the world or different experiences in their own lives. But we can use language to learn about each other and to see, well, my way of doing things isn't the only way of doing things. And maybe I'm missing out on the bigger picture by not having learned how other people look at that. And so it's, not just the communication to get things done or get from point A to point B or satisfy somebody's need or even be of help to someone else, but this deeper understanding and perspective that's embedded in culture, in history, and way of doing life.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think of higher education in general can kind of be reduced down to this pathway to a career. And so Spanish language could become, or any language learning could become very transactional, that, hey, this will equip you to do this job or that job. But what I'm hearing you really passionately sharing and communicating is that we can actually understand God's creation and God's people much better through the kind of whole person development of language learning. So, yeah, super encouraging there. One part of the Dordt program that is distinct, I think a lot of institutions offer the opportunity to study abroad, but your institution requires that every Spanish major and minor, or just
Yes.
major
No,
required?
both.
Okay, majors and minors are required to study abroad. Why is that so important, and why did you make that choice? And tell us about that.
I didn't put that on the books, even though I full heartedly support that. So, Dordt as an institution, as a liberal arts place, when we talk about languages, we can learn, as I said, the grammar and the vocab, but I can't replace a 24/7 environment where I'm put at the edge of my comfort zone. Yes, I can use Spanish in classes, and my tutors are using them in the tutoring sessions. But this idea that I have to function and be able to do day-to-day life when everything is foreign to me, that's something that we can't replace in the classroom. And there's something about when we're pushed to the edge of, maybe it's overwhelming, I don't understand, maybe not necessarily nothing, but not everything, and I'm confused, and how do I do this, and what am I expected to do, and what does the body language of the other person across from me actually communicate with me. Students can only experience that when they're in the environment where that is happening, which is in the countries that the language is spoken. And there's different things that happen with them. One was study abroad. It's college students anyways are at a point where they're questioning a lot of things and where they're growing from much dependence on their parents and their families and their environment to lesser dependence on them and becoming their own people, figuring out their own thing. Study abroad is vital in that, in terms of, okay, so I grew up with a certain faith. I grew up with a certain way of being able to function in the world and knowing what to do. And when I'm in a different environment, where the language is different and the way things are done is different, there's growth that happens. And we can't replicate that growth in an environment where you're relatively, I don't want to use the word safe, because study abroad definitely is safe, and our programs try very hard to make sure we're reacting to things that are happening and provide a network around students. They're never truly by themselves. But that personal growth of making your faith your own, of figuring out, okay, which pieces of my upbringing are really important to me that I want to keep, and also, what are pieces of this other culture when it comes to relationships, when it comes to how we look at time, or the time that's ordained to us in our days? There's so much growth that happens that way. Language wise, I know from experience, and I know I still have an accent, as my kids tell me, Mom, you still sound German. Okay. Um, your brain acquires it. My job shouldn't actually exist. I can't necessarily teach a language, because that's not how that works. Your brain absorbs all the information. So, me having you 3 hours in class every week and another hour with tutoring cannot get the same results in the amount of time as being 24/7, having to use it to get on the bus, having to get a role, or figuring out how to get a ticket for a concert, having to interact with your teachers and your staff members in your study abroad options, only in the target language. And there's so much growth language wise, where your brain listens and listens and listens, and then is able at some point to do more of the output correctly. And so, yes, students think that they go abroad, or we require them to go abroad to learn the language more proficiently and to make bigger gains in a shorter amount of time. We know that all the other things that come with study abroad are actually almost more important than just the language piece. And so, yes, we require minors and majors to go. Now, for some, the requirement is pretty easy in terms of 3 credits. So you could fulfill it during a 4-week summer study abroad, and it's more still kind of like a vacation. You get a taste of it. But as their advisor, when we look through plans, when we see that there is room for more than a summer abroad is good if that's the only thing you can fit in. My nurses, my engineers, they really have tight plans, and we can't fit anything else in. But for everything else, I can speak from personal experience, having been the German in America and becoming better in English, and then being the American student going to Spain on a study abroad. My Spanish got the best there when my host dad every night asked me, "So what did you do today?" and interrupted me at every sentence, making sure my past tense was getting better and my prepositions were more on point. That type of learning we just can't replicate here on campus.
Yeah, I mean, even hearing you talk about just the learning that can happen, and the learning that can only happen in the study abroad environment that you're talking about, or that kind of context, it almost seems like, why would you not, in many ways. So
Well, for us, we also say, do you want to spend another winter in Iowa, or do you want to go to Ecuador or Spain or Costa Rica? Yeah.
right,
So,
it becomes a relatively simple choice, I'm sure.
yes, for most students, yes. And sometimes students think that it's unaffordable, that that's something that's totally not within the realm of what's possible for them. In seeing that we have scholarship applications we can connect them to, that we have partnerships with different universities and different study abroad programs, I think with students that think this is totally out of their reach, it is much more possible when you actually
Mhm.
look at the details than more people think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I could attest to that. Well, let's transition a little bit and talk about Spain specifically. And Spain is obviously near and dear to you. Well, I shouldn't say obvious for anyone who doesn't know you yet, I guess. But to you, it's obvious that Spain is near and dear to your heart. And Spain is newer for living and learning over the last 6 months through this past fall. This program called Semester in Spain that has a really rich and robust history operating in Spain and stewarded by Trinity Christian College for nearly 50 years has joined the Living and Learning kind of network and portfolio of programs. And so we're really excited to be taking an active step as an organization into working in Spain. But wanted to hear some of your background and experience in Spain, and then specifically, what is it about Spain that it becomes a place you continue to go back to and bring students to, and why is it a great place for college students?
Yeah, very good question. I could gush about that forever. It's funny, my people ask me, so do you get homesick for Germany? And I say, I miss my family, but my heart longs to be on Spanish ground.
Mm,
They have, over my 25 years of studying and being able to go visit, developed that I feel home there. And so that's part of it for me. My first experience of going abroad actually was to Saragossa, ninth grade in Germany, had just started learning Spanish. And we had the opportunity, our teacher had a very good connection to somebody in Saragossa. So we traveled. And of all things, Holy Week in northern Spain with the drums and all the pieces that come with Semana Santa. And I know Semana Santa is a big deal in all of the Spanish speaking world. But for me, as a 15-year-old girl with classmates, barely understanding the language and feeling how important that faith aspect was in society, and how experiencing that faith life from a community that wasn't my own, and then being in a host family where this student that I was exchanging with, or who was living with me in Germany for a couple of weeks, and then I lived with them, um, getting to know his family, understanding his grandma lived in the same place, having that intergenerational way of life, was something that was very meaningful for me. Later, when I studied, actually, I'm an alumni of the Semester in Spain program. Um, the warmth of the people is something that has always drawn me to that. And I know that's true for many Spanish speaking cultures. And I'm not saying that other cultures aren't warm at all. But this feeling like your family as soon as you get there, and of course, you're one of us, if you're curious enough to come here and want to get to know our life, we won't say, no, you have to learn the language better first, or no, you have to fulfill all these requirements. The way daily life is set up in Spain, with a rich cultural history of many different perspectives having to coexist, often through invasion or hundreds of years of then the Reconquista. But this idea of different people from different backgrounds living and sharing space, sharing meals, sharing conversation is something that keeps drawing me back to the place. Obviously, it's beautiful. I don't have to talk about the geography for those that have traveled to Spain. You can have anything from mountains to beaches to really, really beautiful cities and rural gardens and being out in creation. So that piece of it itself is obviously very beautiful. But for me, it's the people. I fell in love with the people of Spain and their warmth and their genuine desire to be a good neighbor to you, to be someone that welcomes you. And hospitality, sometimes we talk about, feels like, oh, if I just on Sundays set a nice dinner table and have my nice china out, and then we have a meal and then people go home, and that's hospitality. Think for me in Spain, I've experienced something much deeper, much richer, of becoming part of the community, through all the different traditions that are there.
hmm. Well, certainly a glowing endorsement from you, from your personal experiences for Spain as a country and as a location. If I'm somebody listening to this podcast, and maybe I'm an administrator or a professor or somebody who sits in a seat responsible for advising their students towards study abroad, why would you say to that person it's an incredible environment for a Christian college student specifically? They've got all the options in the world to go to, and why would a Christian college student choose Spain, and why would an administrator or a professor maybe advise their students in that direction?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One, the network that is built in I mean, I can speak about semester in Spain specifically because that's my experiences with that as a Christian. It's for me, a gold standard of what that should look like. Um, People coming in with their faith traditions, it's not like all of a sudden you're like, okay, you're in Spain, so you're going to do Catholic Mass and you're going to do all these things. Spain is a very open country with lots of different faith traditions. So I can continue to worship with communities that believe as I do while also experiencing what is it that other people believe in? What are their traditions? I can see it when I walk the streets. I can attend other services. And I have a place where I have a network around me where I can actually discuss these ideas. And I'm in community with other believers, and I can figure out both my own stance on faith and my own kind of figuring things out, but it's within um, a, a network and guiding pieces from professors and staff members that not only have experience having walked alongside other students that are figuring that out, but are very deeply caring about what these students are experiencing, to not just let them disassemble everything and leave it at that, but to see what does your faith now look like in this different cultural aspect. So Spain is a place where those conversations are welcomed, where you have opportunity to experience a lot of diversity while still being held in a community that deeply cares about you, and helps you wrestle and wrangle with that, which is something, especially for college age students, that we feel is super important.
Yeah, maybe even some of that support and care. There's a degree of nuance, like a lot of organizations can maybe put on a flyer, different types of support services and a 24-hour hotline that you could call in an emergency or something like that. But really the wraparound and kind of holistic care that you're describing um, is distinct and unique, I think, within the landscape of study abroad programs and opportunities out there for students. So yeah, for us as living and learning, it's been new to jump into relationship with the staff in Spain, and as multiple of our team members have been over there, and we have somebody landing today to do a site visit. That has continually shown up, just the degree of and depth of care that students receive, which I think in many ways matches what Christian colleges and universities are wanting to do on their campuses.
Yes.
Um, so yeah. Well, Dr. Brons, thank you so much for time today and for conversation. I think hearing your perspective and your experience, both your personal experience, growing up in Germany and all of that, and then your heart for your students at Dordt as they grapple with life and language and faith, I'm encouraged and inspired. For those listening, I think we're bringing together a community of administrators, faculty, and staff within Christian higher ed that care deeply to see opportunities like this be advanced, be championed for their students. There's a lot of things that our colleges and universities hope their graduates walk off campus with. And some of that high aim is that they would be people who grow deeper in their affection for Jesus, grow deeper in their understanding of, who God has made them to be, and some of this great redemptive arc over humanity. And that's a big call, and that can happen on campus, and in many ways that can also happen while abroad through study abroad. So there's a small group convening this April in Florida at Southeastern University, April 15th to 17th for the Christian Study Abroad Conference. We'll be heading into our third year running that conference. And it's been a rich time to bring together two groups, those that sit at Christian colleges and universities sending students out, and those running distinctly Christian study abroad programs, receiving students and hoping to do that in a thoughtful discipleship kind of context. And so, for those listening, we'd invite you to come and join us in Florida. But yes, Dr. Brons, again, thank you for time today, and it's been a joy to get to chat.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.